Good morning and welcome to Rising. Thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday morning. We've got a little
Thursday. Don't push us back.
Oh my gosh, it's Thursday.
Don't be crazy, Robbie.
Well, that's good news. I did a little bit of time traveling just there.
You did.
I was distracted by this beautiful kind of light peeking through the clouds. You all can't see it, but we've got these.
It was so dark yesterday, and Robbie does not like a dreary day. Okay, he's very not sunshine, rainbows, and flowers.
Because I'm so bright and sunshiny.
But he doesn't like dark days.
All right, well, coming up on Rising, the former CDC director was testifying on Capitol Hill yesterday, and things did get a little bit testy.
Plus, FBI Director Kash Patel also got into some heated exchanges with Democratic lawmakers over those Epstein files.
Plus, President Trump has vowed to declare Antifa a terrorist organization. But Lindsey, let's get to your radar. What's on it?
Yeah, let's talk about it today. So former President Barack Obama says the nation is at a, quote, inflection point after the assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. In his first public remarks on the shooting, Obama called Kirk's death a tragedy. Let's take a look.
Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrific and a tragedy. What happened, as you mentioned, to the state legislators in Minnesota, that is horrific. It is a tragedy.
Now, Obama made those remarks at the Jefferson Educational Society's Global Summit Tuesday night. He argued that America is in the middle of a, quote, political crisis, and went further, noting that the President Trump is fueling divisions with his response to the tragedy. But what stood out to me most was the contrast Obama drew between how presidents respond in moments of national pain. He pointed back to former rivals like George W. Bush, potential president that ran for one, John McCain and Mitt Romney, people who, despite sharp policy differences, understood the assignment when tragedy struck, to unify the country. That reminded me of how Obama himself handled one of the darkest moments of his presidency, the 2015 mass shooting at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Now let's remember, that was a white supremacist who murdered 9 black worshipers in their sanctuary, hoping to ignite a race war. Obama didn't scapegoat political enemies or look for the loudest partisan villain to attack. He just called the shooter what he was, a criminal, and then tried to rally the nation toward unity.
This is not the first time that black churches have been attacked. And we know that hatred across races and faiths pose a particular threat to our democracy and our ideals. The good news is I am confident that the outpouring of unity and strength and fellowship and love across Charleston today, from all races, from all faiths, from all places of worship, indicates the degree to which those old vestiges of hatred can be overcome.
Now that's presidential leadership, setting a tone that calms the country instead of pouring gasoline on an already burning fire. But compare that to how President Trump responded to Kirk's assassination.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals.
Now, Trump played the blame game 2 minutes into a 4-minute speech. He took the tragedy and used it as a political tool, targeting his opponents rather than simply mourning the loss and trying to bring unity. Obama this week called that out.
I've noticed that there's been some confusion, I think, around this lately. And frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy.
The former president then suggested that this line of thinking could lead the country down the wrong path.
We're going to identify an enemy. We're going to suggest that somehow that enemy was at fault, and we are then going to use that as a rationale for trying to silence discussion around who we are as a country and what direction we should go.
And that's the bigger point here. Leadership isn't about silencing the debate or vilifying half of the country because they hold different views. It's about making space for the disagreement without justifying violence. Not one Democratic leader on the left wished for Charlie Kirk to die because of his views. Not one. Disagreement with someone's ideology is not the same as endorsing their murder, and suggesting otherwise is not only dishonest, it's dangerous. At the end of the day, presidents set the tone. When tragedy strikes, the job is simple, but it's hard. Comfort the nation, call for unity, and make sure the civil discourse continues. Because blaming political rivals for the act of one violent criminal does not just miss the mark, it leaves the country more divided. And to me, that's not leadership.
Well, look, I appreciate the things Barack Obama said there. I don't disagree with them at all. I don't think the immediate aftermath of a horrific mass shooting should be used as some pretext for political persecution of your enemies. And a lot of what the Trump administration is going to do in response to this, I don't agree.
You have said
with,
that, yeah. I want everybody to know that you did say you don't think this is the moment to do that.
But you know, when Obama says not to politicize it, not to blame the rhetoric of your opponents, I just find that to be such a hollow remark, because that has long been the textbook response to tragedies perpetrated by plausibly or discernibly right-wing figures, or assumed to be right-wing figures, by the mainstream media and the Democratic Party and progressive activists. When Gabby Giffords was shot during Barack Obama's presidency in 2012, Democratic representative in Arizona, the response from Democrats, I guess I can't recall precisely what Barack Obama himself said, but the response from Democrats in the mainstream media and progressive activists was overwhelmingly to blame right-wing rhetoric and the Tea Party, even though it turned out the shooter had nothing to do with the right at all.
Can I push back on that? Because I think that the response was to try to go to Congress to push gun laws forward. And that's where discussion and debate... But that's usually the conversation to figure out how gun laws can be pushed
Here's
forward.
The Guardian from 14 years ago. Gabby Giffords shooting, the Guardian's progressive news website. Gabby Giffords shooting reignites row over right-wing rhetoric in U.S. Sarah Palin at center of storm over political vitriol after spree leaves 6 dead. It had nothing to do with Sarah Palin.
That's fine. So Fox News, Newsmax, MSNBC can do what they want. I'm talking about the president. Yeah. That's the clear distinction I'm making. It comes from the top down. The president must lead in this moment and be the leader for the party and show an example. And so what President Obama did during his term was to try to be that example, and the rhetoric still continued on who to point fingers and blame at. But when it's coming from the top, to me, that's problematic, because we're trying to bring the nation together, or at least we need to try. We are at a really contentious point in our nation's history, and it's not the worst of times, and it doesn't need to be the worst of times. And so it starts from the top on trying to bring people together. That's the biggest issue for me, is that, yes, everyone's saying what they want to say. All these people that have podcasts and blogs, I'm not trying to criticize and figure out how to organize all of them. I'm asking for the president to be presidential. Mm-hmm. Isn't that like a fair ask? I think that you should want that from your president as well.
Right, but I just think we're looking back on Obama's own terms with, we're looking at it through rose-tinted glasses to say that there was no division, or that division was not being fostered. It was loftier rhetoric than that which is employed by Donald Trump, but conservatives certainly felt that division was being
This week, Senator Dick Durbin was saying that to characterize MAGA as Nazis is problematic. And on the other side, when Republicans characterize Democrats as the party of murder or evil, that's also extremely problematic. Why can't we agree that those things are not right? That these parties don't cause murder and evil, and these parties are not also Nazis, right? This is like just the basis of my argument right here.
Okay, well, I'm fine to take that, to accept your proposal that not to call enemies Nazis or murderers or whatever it is.
Because the people committing the act are the people with the gun. I mean,
right. I don't think that's helpful, and I also don't know that it is plausibly connected to this shooting or any other shooting, the rhetoric of any. That's actually where I draw the biggest line, is that people's inflammatory rhetoric is asserted without evidence that is at the root of the violence problem we're seeing. And this shooter, to be clear, is has left-wing motivations, clearly, but was probably radicalized by online peer groups rather than the rhetoric of political figures. But we'll still be investigating that for some time to come, I think.
For sure. So up next, the former CDC director was on Capitol Hill to testify before the Senate Health Committee, and things got a little testy, to say the least. We'll be right back.